Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode with our TwoDads COVID-19 support sessions. What has really surprised me over this journey of recording these sessions which has been the outpouring of professionals that have wanted to get involved, share best practice, share knowledge. And there are a few people that I wanted to reach out to, thinking that, you know what, it'd be nice to get this person and to have this person. And then there are a few people that I really wanted to get on this particular sessional chat. And this next gentleman is one of them for a number of reasons, which you're about to find out. Not only does he practically have his own hashtag of surrogacy guru, he also is an author of a book, which we're going to talk about very soon. So I am going to be joined today by Richard Westoby. He's a father to a set of boy-girl twins born in September 2012. Richard and his partner Stephen undertook surrogacy in the US and learned a lot about the entire process during their own surrogacy journey. Since the twins were born, Richard has become an advocate for helping prospective parents learn more about IVF and surrogacy in general, but predominantly about doing it in the US. And in doing so, Richard now helps many intended parents from all over the globe. So if you are within the surrogacy community, you're going to have heard of my next guest. On top of this, he also helps intended parents gain knowledge and enable them to ask the professionals questions pertinent to each stage of their journey. And if you follow him, you'll also see some of the information that he shares with the clinic that he contracts with as well, which we're going to hear about shortly. The one thing about Richard is I guess he's always had a real fascination with biology. And when you talk to him, you actually would think he's also a clinician. And I think a lot of people also believe that too. On the back of his experience and advocacy work, he now works with San Diego Fertility Center and their prospective parents. Based on his years in the industry, Richard also runs Integrity, a very small boutique egg donor agency at the US, and I can't wait to hear more about that. So about the book, Richard has been a guest speaker on a number of events all over the world, focusing on building alternative families. And his book, he wrote Our Journey, One Couple's Guide to US Surrogacy. It is due for a re-release this year, I'm told. So I'm intrigued to hear a little bit more about that. But that's also available on Amazon and other retail outlets, which we'll provide links for after this. So I am thrilled and honoured to be joined by the wonderful Mr. Richard Westoby. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. How's Norfolk?
Norfolk's good. I mean, lockdown's, I think, hard for many people. I'm not going to lie. It's got its ups and downs. I'm definitely not a school teacher. That's one thing I've learned. Basic maths and basic English grammar gone. But we're in Norfolk. So we've got a place in London, a place in Norfolk. We've got the space here, so the children are able to go out, ride their bikes, and maintain some form of sanity.
And what's it been like for you being locked down? Because I follow you on Instagram and you don't sit still. It's New York, San Diego, it's all over the place. So this must be killing you right now.
Do you know what? It's two things that I've found. One is that there are a lot of people around the world that I've connected with on a personal level that I'm not able to see. And that, I think, when you're going through this journey, you want to be able to sit down with people, look them in the eye, have that face-to-face contact. And I get it, right? It's hard for everybody. But the flip side is it's meant that I've got to spend some time with my children. And that's really good, because obviously when I travel, I do day trips typically. And, I'll drop them at school and then I'll go to France, for example, and come back the following day, or I'll be in San Diego for a couple of weeks. And that takes a toll. I'm not good with jet lag, I have to say. So it's quite nice to be in one place, I have to say.
I bet. And a lot of people that I'm speaking to that pre-COVID, ourselves included, manic, busy, sometimes, busy, but just all over the place. And this has been a really good time to connect, to reground, to slow down. And our kids, we don't really have to homeschool, so I'm really intrigued to see how that's going. So I don't envy that, but it's been really good to just connect as a family, and for the kids to have us around. That's what I've enjoyed personally.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of my work is done remotely though. So I get the children up, homeschool them, put them to bed, and then start working. So my day is still very busy. It's just less travel. So yeah,
Okay.
just different.
So tell us about, when we last had a few messages, you were in homeschool hell. How is it, having one child and then having twins homeschooling? I just couldn't imagine. Were you and your partner taking that in turns, or how was it working?
I'm doing the majority of it. Yeah, and Stephen is still working full time. So he jumps on calls at 8 o'clock and doesn't really finish till about 7 o'clock every night. So
Okay.
I did have a bit of a meltdown, so he does jump in sometimes and help out. But I'm doing the majority of it. And the wonderful thing about having two of the same age is if one grasps a concept and the other doesn't, I'll get them to explain to each other so that they can learn from each other, because they'll explain it in ways that a 7-year-old, because my children are 7.5, that a 7.5-year-old can understand, whereas I'm in my mid-40s, I'm 44. I'm trying to explain it as I would, being taught the way that I was taught X amount of years ago. 80. It's just a totally different methodology nowadays, and that helps. But I do find that when it gets too much, I just pack it in. And at the end of the day, their mental health is a lot more important to me than learning their times tables. So if they're getting frustrated, pack it in, go for a walk. I think there's a level playing field at the end of the day. Every child of their age is struggling. And come September, hopefully, if everyone is back at school, they'll all have missed out on a term of school. So I'm okay with that.
Totally. And that's really good advice, actually. And one of my other friends going through a similar situation, all kids will catch up, and once they're back in their environment and not this alien environment where their parent is their teacher, they will regrasp and get where they need to be. They're all in the same situation, which is
they are. I find that I apologize a lot to my children for my terrible teaching. And it's quite funny because now they go, it's okay, Papa, don't worry. We know you're not a teacher. I'm like,
that's cute. That is cute. So those that aren't familiar with your work, that might not be from the surrogacy community, but maybe have an interest in fertility, could you let everybody know about the work that you do with San Diego and how that came about, really?
Yeah, sure. You touched on it earlier. I'm not a doctor. The one thing, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. I'm literally just a dad. And for the past 7 years, what I've been doing is I've been using the experience that we had during our process to creating a family, and then subsequently since then, in really helping other people to navigate what can be sometimes a very opaque situation, right? It's not something that you learn about in school. You have to rely on specific professionals who are going to teach you about what the process is. And there is always an asymmetry of information where one side knows more than the other. So a lot of what I do is explaining options available to people in advance of starting a process, because once you've started, it's a bit like a juggernaut. Sometimes you can't get off. So I try to, it's almost like I give people a decision tree of information with all of the forks filled out in advance, so they can then take the route that is available and the best route for them. It's basically getting intended parents fully informed and fully empowered to make the choices that work for them in their family building.
Yeah, amazing. And I think the work that you do, being in the surrogacy world and just seeing what you do and how many intended parents that you've supported to build families, just phenomenal. I think that an outsider looking in, the work and the content and the service that you do to and in some cases to destigmatize surrogacy for those that don't understand it or may have been anti. I think you and the work that you've done is incredible. So thank you from one of those intended parents. So as you know, the majority of my work is within the UK, and talk to me and anyone else that's watching or listening about the benefits of going down a US route versus that in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, the UK is a great option. It really is. If you can find a surrogate and that you have faith in the process and that you believe it's all going to be good. Because the reality is there's very little legal protection. And for us specifically, when we were looking at our journey, the main benefit for me was that certainty of knowing from the outset that there was legal protection in place for everybody. So our surrogate she had a lawyer represent her. She was fully informed. She was psychologically tested. She'd been through that whole process. She had spoken to somebody about this, the emotional, again, mental health, very important to me, the mental health side of things. And for me, that's arguably the best thing about the US. For example, in California, if you're using the San Diego Fertility Clinic, one of the things that we can do is we can export California law. If you do your embryo transfer in California and your surrogate lives in a less friendly surrogacy state, you can actually transport that law from California out. So things like
I never knew that.
Yeah. And obviously there has to be reciprocity on the laws, but
yeah,
it's an amazing advantage, right? So the knowledge that surrogacy has been going for 30 years, it's known, it's dealt with, the hospitals understand the process, you've got lawyers representing you, and also you've got agencies. Remember, agencies in this clinic, in this country are basically not allowed to charge money, and they can assist you and they can help you, but they can't really run a full process for you, whereas in the US, they do that. So there's a barrage of professionals who are able to get you to a point where you're comfortable and you're protected. And for me, again, it's that fully informed thing. I love people to be able, the one thing that I don't ever want to really hear is, oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I want people to understand from the outset what their choices are and know the people around them that are going to help them to get to a successful, happy outcome.
Amazing. Incredible. Yeah. And I that's brand new information. I never realized that the law element could move. That's so almost
California is one of the only states where you can do it. You have to have done your embryo transfer in California.
Wow.
And the benefit of that is California has the pre-birth order, which means that around 26 weeks of gestation, you go to court, and there's a court judgment that says that you as the parents are the parents of that child once it's born. Obviously not in utero, because that's still the surrogate, but that gives you certain rights and responsibilities. And it also quickens the process because, so for example, our children were born in Arizona. Children were born, and 3 weeks later, we got our birth certificates because there was a process after birth. In California, had they been born in California or the state with that reciprocity, we would have been on the birth certificates from day one.
Okay.
And so you can then get your passports and you can fly home quicker.
And it just shortens that process, and your exit is quicker, essentially.
Correct.
Amazing.
In a non-COVID time.
Yeah. We'll come on to that. I think the anxiety for intended parents at the moment must be through the roof. And I'm sure there are parents that you're in touch with at the moment, both UK, about to leave, or those that are there. What is your advice? I've got friends that are due in the next 4 months in Canada, for example. But what is your advice to those that are due in the next 3-4 months on a US journey? What would you be saying to them now?
Listen to the podcast you did with Rich Vaughan 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, he covered it beautifully, right? It's all about getting your paperwork. It's all about getting your ducks in a row, because what you're going to have to do, assuming that lockdown is still in place and the travel bans are in place and the presidential proclamation of not allowing to get into the United States is still in place, you're going to need to prove to the US Embassy why you need to get to the US. Right. And that's going to involve a lot of bureaucracy, I'm afraid, getting stuff together so that you can say to the government, basically, let us in. Because part of the presidential proclamation was that relatives of the US citizen could fly in, but your child isn't born yet. So you can't fly in pre-birth under that. So you have to then go a different route. And that entails things like getting the doctors to sign documents saying that your sperm and eggs were used, or gametes were used, that the surrogate is not the parent, you are the parent. But also other things like, at this moment in time, do hospitals really want staff having to look after children when they could be looking after COVID-19 patients? So there's an argument that's being used by a lot of lawyers saying, hey, you know what, we need these frontline staff not to be looking after newborns, but to be looking after other people. Therefore, please let these intended parents in.
Like bed blocking, essentially.
Basically, yeah, right. And so there's a lot of that going on. But also, the other anxiety that I'm currently dealing with are patients that have had their children and they're stuck in America. They can't fly home because they can't get their passports. And so because the US passport office normally is a very quick turnaround, but at the moment it's very slow. And so some people are trying to get UK passports, some people get US passports, and they're just stuck. And so there's emergency passports being issued. But of course, I have one friend who flew in 6 weeks before the children were born, in theory, but they were born super early, they were twins, and he's now outstayed his 90-day visa.
Oh, wow, of course.
So that also creates a huge problem of him ever going back to the US. So he's had to go to the CBP, Customs Border Protection, to explain to them, look, my children were in NICU for 7 weeks. I have not got the ability to do anything, and therefore I can't help you in leaving this country. I haven't got passports for my kids. They're in the hospital. And that level of stress it's just really hard. It's really hard. It's hard all around. I mean, COVID-19 is unprecedented and has really brought out the best in some people, and it's also brought out the worst in some people. I've seen
and it's just touching everything, isn't it? It's just so vast, and just there isn't anything that isn't impacted. And it's just so broad. So I follow San Diego Fertility Center, and for those that don't, please make sure you do, because some of the content over the last 6 weeks has been fascinating, and I think it's been quite bold, in the sense that, you tell us the content that's coming out from the clinic at the moment. I think it's been unique and phenomenal. Tell us about why you think it's been so unique.
A lot of what we've been doing is webinars on education. We're big on trying to get people up to a speed where they know what's going on, because we understand that as thought leaders, we've got the experience, we've got the expertise. My doctors, each of them have been practicing for 17 plus years, 20 years. Actually, one of them's been doing 30 years. They know this inside and out. So if they are able to take medical information that's disseminated, distill it down, and then convert it into layman's terms, and then put out, like Dr. Danishmand, you're watching him, he does 1 minute.
Incredible.
Remdesivir. This is what's happening. This is what we think. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm just giving you the information. And it's things like that, the nuggets of information that are super important, because actually, as a layperson, I don't know what I don't know. And we rely on professionals to get us to the point where we do. Thankfully, our doctors, we've got multiple languages spoken. So we're doing them in Korean, Mandarin, Spanish, French, English. It's an ability to do that around the world just has been phenomenal. And it's taking this unprecedented situation of COVID-19 and just trying to help people who are stressed or anxious, or who want to start their family building and can't. They just can't. So we're working with people on, what can I do for the future? How do I get to the point of creating my family when I can't travel? If you're in America, you're going to need my sperm or my eggs. How does that work? Talking through things like that. All those people who are, so we, as a clinic, we closed for 3 weeks. There was a stay in place order in California. So we closed to new clients, but of course we have cancer patients. We can't just close the doors to them, because as a clinic, we do about 1,300 IVF cycles a year. Of those, 500 are roughly 500 are surrogacy. The rest are IVF cases. So you have people from all over the world flying in to us to do IVF. And one of my best friends had she had cancer and was like, what am I going to do? I can't just tell the cancer, hold on for a sec, wait for 3 months until COVID's gone to get my eggs out, because in 3 months' time, they're not going to be there because I'm going to have a hysterectomy and they're going to take out my ovaries. So it's walking people through things like that. So we had the doors open, clients were coming in. And in fact, what we've now done is we social distancing as one can in an IVF clinic, because there's certain parts where you need to get close to somebody. But we're procedures are back open. We're doing IUIs, we're doing egg retrievals, embryo creation, and embryo transfers will probably start, I think, in June. But yeah, doing a lot of educational webinars. So
for sure.
Online.
I think what I liked was just the consistency, and I think there are some clinics here in the UK that haven't been as visible, and in the States, in fairness. And I think you couldn't say that about San Diego Fertility Center, because there's been a nice constant flow of information, regardless of the validity of it. But there's always been someone talking through, which has been great. So let's talk about your book, Our Journey. I hear on the grapevine it's due for an upgrade for 2020. What can we expect to see a little bit different?
So I actually update it every year. Even though it was published in 2013, I update it every year. And the grand plan was to have it done during lockdown, which hasn't happened. I would love to say that in between the maths and the phonics, it hasn't happened. But basically, it's going to just update some of the information in it, because each chapter in the book is a different part of the process. So, for example, there's a part on PGT or PGTA. So it's a pre-implantation genetic testing. So we're spearheading at SDFC something where you hopefully won't have to be able to do the biopsy, because as an embryo is growing in the medium, which is basically a Petri dish, it's shedding cells, and we're getting the correlation between those cells and what the PGTA, the results are, on basically genetic testing. And if that can happen, that's going to be a game changer, right? So it's on things like that. Or, of course, now that I'm doing a lot more egg donor stuff, is revamping the egg donor chapter on why certain things are done, what you can be looking for in an egg donor. Insurance in the States is always a huge topic that people need to understand. Again, I'm not an insurance expert, but I've got enough to be dangerous. So just getting people to the point where they can start asking the professionals really informed questions. Because if you don't know what you're supposed to know, how do you know? It's that unknown unknown again.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in theory, watch this space, but I have no idea what it's going to be at. I really don't. I think I'm on chapter 15, and I've got like another 20 to go.
That's fine. Don't worry. We'll still post the link, so people can keep a lookout for it. Okay, so last section then, as with every guest, last top tip. So you choose 3 or 5. What are your top tips?
Gosh, I'll do 3. I think my top tip to everybody looking at surrogacy, wherever they're doing it, is do your due diligence. Really understand the people involved in the process. What is their vested interest? Is it better for you? Is it better for them? Understand who you're working with, and also really follow your gut instinct. Because we overrule our gut instinct all the time. We're blinded by statistics. We're blinded by, we're amazing, you come here, do this, and we'll give you a discount, things like that. But just follow your gut instinct and do your due diligence. Top tip number 2, if you're going to go internationally, talk to a lawyer here in the UK. You need to understand, irrespective of which country you're going to go to, the implications of getting home and the parental orders and how you can be recognized as the parent. Because there's always going to be some form of incongruity between where you've gone and the UK. You have to do the parental order to be recognized. But different jurisdictions have different rules, and you need to know how that's going to impact you from the outset.
Mm-hmm.
And then my third top tip, give me a call. Happy to talk you through anything, anywhere. I'm all over social media, so you can find me there.
And so they should. Thank you, Richard. I knew it would be fascinating, and I've learned some new nuggets as well. Thank you so much for giving us your time and away from your gorgeous family. You go and enjoy the sunshine, and thank you so much for talking to us. All the best. Take care. If you like what you've seen so far, head over to our website at www.twodaddies.co.uk. There you can read our blog and subscribe to our newsletter. Or find us on Facebook and Instagram, simply searching at twodads.u.k.